They were asking employees like, give us $250,000 and we'll match you in equity an extra
Well, they were
$250,000.
asking employees for
So
money.
yeah, they were asking.
So if you're looking for the inside scoop on FTX, you've come to the right place. We're talking with someone who used to work at the company, shares a lot of details, a lot of stories. I think you'll like it. This is part one of two. Why even talk to me at all? What's your main purpose? You know what I mean?
Well, I think kind of to get to the truth of what's happening, I think we've been deceived by a lot of different things from either what the media is saying and then what Sam has been saying on his media blitz, right? I just sort of want
Mm,
to sort of a more truthful narrative to come out about what FTX was really doing, maybe months even before the collapse. And that's why I commented, because I showed your video to an internal company
yeah.
um, back channel. And that usually I post something, let's say it's a very important thing that maybe revolves hundreds of millions of dollars. Sam won't respond. I posted that video with your
He won't respond.
relatively small with your relatively small YouTuber, and Sam's
Yeah.
like, "Whoa, we jump on this right away." And I was shocked. I almost didn't want to post it because I said, maybe it's not really
Yeah,
relevant.
yeah.
No one will probably care about it. And then I was told my boss kind of guy said, yeah, you should post this. This is important. And this was at the time where we were like, trying to cancel a lot of different contracts. Because I was like, because I was thinking in my head, I'm like, why are we canceling all this? Then you
Right.
posted that video. So I was connecting the dots like, this is not making a lot of sense.
What was the reasoning when they were saying when they start canceling stuff? Just that we've changed direction or that we're out of money or what were they
Well,
trying to say?
they definitely didn't say we're out of money, right? But
Okay,
they
sure.
wanted to do it in a way that I think didn't spook the market, but they basically
Hmm.
were trying to go through the contracts and say, can we get any breach of contract? And
Oh, okay.
they used to make deals, I think, and basically they didn't care about the metrics, right? We usually have things
Oh, they
like
didn't
a
care.
normal. Well, it's
Oh,
kind
like
of
we're talking about like they
odd.
didn't care about conversions or anything of this. They didn't care?
Well, they do care, but Sam would have these kind of notes to us, like where he would say, "Oh, our deal with Tom Brady is worth 10x all the other deals, or our deal with the MLB is 15x." And the problem was he had no basis for these numbers; they were
Okay.
just
Yeah.
made up. We
Yeah,
always
yeah,
used
yeah.
to say
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
I talked with people in like a sports agency that we hired, and we were like, "Where does he get these numbers?" And we just said like, he plucks them from his behind because there's no data behind it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
why
Yeah.
do you think we got involved in TSM? Why do you think we got involved in Riot? Because Sam liked gaming, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we got involved in the partnerships that he liked. He quantified them in deals that he liked, and that's sort of how the company was run. It was like, oh, I think Tom Brady's a cool guy, therefore I'll sign
Right.
him to a deal, right?
Right.
Versus we had Shohei Ohtani, who's this really fantastic baseball
Yep.
player,
Yep.
and I said, let's do good things with him. He's the MVP.
Yeah, yeah,
He's like, no,
yeah.
I don't really like it because
I
he didn't like baseball.
don't.
And he didn't like baseball, and he never hung out with Shohei Ohtani. He
He
can't
just
speak
knew who
English
Tom
or
Brady
whatever.
was, right?
Yeah, so Tom Brady did TikToks with him, and they
Yeah,
hung
yeah.
out. So therefore,
Yeah.
he liked thing. But we were like, no, Shohei's really big. Let's do something with him. He's this amazing asset. And Sam was like not keen. And we actually produced a video from a major company. We spent about $2 million on the ad. We produced it, 30-second ad. Sam was there, kind of chiming in randomly, and then he saw the ad, and he just said, "This is terrible. Never show it on television. Kill it." We spent $2 million
$2 million.
to produce the ad. Yeah,
Wow.
and when I started hearing that, I'm like, I worked for a really big tech company for 7 years in my background, right? We
Hmm.
care about 100,000. We care about
Oh,
ten
sure.
thousand
Oh,
dollars, right?
sure. Oh,
Like
sure.
money is when you don't count cents, you don't make dollars, right? So we would produce these like these incredible, like this ad, and I thought the ad was fine. Most people thought it was fine, but then he
Hmm.
actually posted in our Slack channel the completed ad with a very big bias to tell you that it wasn't good. Some people in the company would say it was
Mm,
bad, and he
mm.
like compared it to our other ad, Larry David. He's like, "This is a great ad. This is a crappy
Yeah,
ad. You guys
yeah,
got to
yeah,
improve
yeah,
yourself." But a lot of people put in a lot of work, including Shohei Ohtani, who was in
yeah.
the ad, and it was pretty good, right? I don't want to say it's great or bad, but my point is, this should never get to the stage where you spend this much
Yeah,
money, this
yeah,
much effort, and
yeah.
just kill something.
What was morale in these kind of situations? So, because it's interesting just your description of Sam and stuff like that. What's morale like when he's like, ah, screw it, that's only $2 million, and
Morale,
we got billions.
yeah,
Like what?
morale was terrible, I think,
Oh, it
around a
was
lot of
okay.
the things because, especially in the partnerships, because we would work really hard. Let's say we have these assets and we know they're valuable. We're paying hundreds of millions of dollars for some of these sponsorships, right? So we go in with the intention we want to market this product, we want to, increase our, the recognition around it. But we would produce, like, let's say a major, let's say we have the Major League Baseball or something like that, right? We'd have a campaign around our touch points. Here's what we want to do with this event. Here's our, let's say our media spend, all these different things. And we would then send it up the chain, and maybe you get a comment like a thumbs up sometimes.
So I heard about the emoji thing. That was real. That's real then, or not?
Which one? Sorry.
So we had heard reports that the like CFO and stuff like that would approve stuff with emojis. Is that not true?
Yes,
then?
that was true. We sent it in basically if you had an expense, which is what I also couldn't understand.
Like a purchase order, right? Essentially.
Yeah. So let's say we have a legal fee or something like that. Okay. They post it in this Slack channel. Someone, we don't really know who they are, just says, yeah, approved, and says a stamp. Because I guess the moderator of that channel, and they just pay it off. And I'm like, how do you know who gets, like, how much budget you have? This was also in our partnerships, super never explained. So if in a normal business, if you have, let's say TSM, it's publicly available, $210 million deal. That's a lot of money, right? Usually you'll then have like an activation fund around that, where you'll have a budget saying, we're going to build let's say a booth at this kind of, whatever the event they're going to, TwitchCon or something like that. So we have an activation budget. But FTX, we had to sort of every individual thing we wanted to do, no matter how trivial or small, we then had to seek additional funding, but we didn't know if it was going to be approved or not. We'd put it in the Slack or something like that. And then maybe they would look at it. Maybe they'd approve it. So we had no guidance on like, okay, what are we
You
gonna
had no
do?
idea of total budget, I guess. Is that what you're trying to like?
Zero idea, like no idea at all. Like, and this was, to our agency, as I say, who is supporting us, they've have 50, 60 years of experience. They said this is never done. Most companies, like if you're Coca-Cola and you sponsor the World Cup, you're going to have a robust plan for what you're going to do with that, right? Because you don't want to waste your investment. So FTX seemed more like they cared about putting I described it as you're building a mansion, but you don't turn the lights on. So we had all these deals. And that's why the public is probably like unaware that like we have Trevor Lawrence as a guy. Like, did you even know that, right? Most people don't. We had so many influencers and people promoting us, but we didn't do a great job even. I mean, we did an okay job because it was just such volume, right? But if you talk about concentrating a message versus like a brand like Johnson & Johnson or people that have been around the space for a while, they would do such a more effective job at every dollar should be important, right? That you invest in. You should try to think about that. And we just didn't do that at FTX. So yeah, to your earlier question about morale, I would say people did a lot of really hard work, and sometimes you would get feedback like, I need this on a 1-page tiny document when you're trying to do like a year summary for your planning. And that makes people, I think, feel pretty like, the management just doesn't care about it. My thesis for why they didn't care about it was, if you're thinking about maybe what Sam's brain space was thinking at the time, he's trying to spin all the plates, keep them moving up, right? He's trying to keep the game going. So anything that you're doing marketing wise or in this kind of way probably doesn't matter, because ultimately, if I did the best possible job marketing and he knew financially they were devastated, like he was focused probably all his effort on that. Hence why he didn't even care about these like hundreds of millions of dollar decisions, because he ultimately knew that if it came crashing down, it was going to be because of, some liquidity problem. So he was probably keeping that. But why your message probably hit was they didn't want to spook anything. As you saw, CZ's tweet was not the cause of the problem, but it was the catalyst, right? So if people had not had fear and they kept the money, maybe Sam had an idea, and I'm sure he did, to kind of trade his way out of this whole problem, or move illiquid assets, get them liquid. He probably was trying to do things behind the scenes. But that made for us on morale wise, like we just kind of worked, and then we hoped we were doing a good job, but we didn't have nearly enough people. Like in our partnerships team, we maybe had like 2 dedicated people for $1 billion in investment.
And I wanted to ask you about that, because it came up in mind when you're talking about, you said didn't have enough people. How would you describe like recruiting of terms of employees that work at FTX, like maybe salary negotiations? Are people talking about this? Because you're talking about, hey, I like Tom Brady, I'll give him $100 million because why not? Like did that bleed over into also recruiting just regular employees? I like this, and give him $1 million. I mean, was it?
Most regular employees were found through like a network, I guess. And the original employees all started with like Sam's group at what was it, Jane Street and stuff like that. And then it would be like a couple of crypto insiders. Then I got referred to by a very senior guy at the company. And then he's like, yeah, you should join my company. So mostly it was recruits. Sometimes it would be like meeting people at a, like an NFT convention. And then they
Okay.
like engineers. So they were looking for people in the industry. And I'm pretty young. I'm mid 30s. And
Hmm.
I was definitely on the old side, like clearly on the older side of the company. So they liked young people who were really, most people in the company are smart and really good at what they do, like the programmers and everything like that. Very talented. And they believe and they were building a working product. Like the company
Yep.
worked. It wasn't,
Yep.
it had good solutions. It's just that they were deceived at the back end of this whole thing. But the
Yep.
people themselves I found to be smart,
Hmm.
you know, nerdy types, right? Like
Hmm.
a real company. But yeah, that's what I found. And to your question about like how the deal sizes were reached, what I had heard was some of our original guys who had signed these partnerships were actually paid a commission of the partnership that they made,
Oh, okay. Okay.
which never should happen. It makes no logical sense. When our agency heard about this, they
Because that
said
means
that
from
that is
the employee point of view, you want to drive the price up as much as you can, I guess, right? Is that essentially?
correct. And they were like contractors. But that's why when we looked at these deals, they are awful. Like the amount of entitlements to the amount of money you
Yeah.
spend. And I had one person basically off the record when I was speaking with them. They said, like, well, we out negotiated you. This is the contract you have. You signed it. So if you want to come at us, we have lawyers. So that's going to be the contract. Because they knew it was called the crypto premium or whatever for a while, but
Hmm.
they knew they were getting great deals out of FTX. It was not like it was a sucker's deal. We
Mm.
saw them and I looked at them right away and I was like, when I came in, I joined after most things were signed. And I
Hmm.
was like, these are not good deals. These don't
Yeah.
make sense.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they are what they are. So my job was I took it as I'm gonna make lemonade out of lemons, right? Like I'm gonna do the best with what we can. That's what I went in with the intentions.
You describe that, it kind of, I'm just thinking in my head, it kind of sort of shows why people would want to be in bed with FTX essentially, because if everyone feels like they're getting a great deal or ripping off FTX in a way, right? They're like, oh man,
Yeah.
I'll do business with you all day, every day, right? Keep that money flowing. It's
So
really, mhm,
yeah, let's say you're a YouTuber and you have a medium channel or something like that, right?
right.
And I don't know the sponsorship sizes, but let's say hypothetically some brand like what's the popular brand that some knife company, those knife
Yeah.
companies like,
Yeah.
and let's say it's another product, NordVPN or something like that, right?
Yeah.
A very
Yeah.
standard product, it's safe, right? Let's say they pay you, we're going to give you a $10,000 contract, right? Imagine FTX comes in and says, we're going to give you 100 grand. It's
Right.
10x market price.
Right.
So it doesn't make logical sense. And I think a lot of people will be like, well, they've already signed Tom Brady. They already have Steph
Yeah.
Curry.
Yeah.
I'll take 100 from this company. Like, I think that's a lot of people were like, they're way over market value, a lot of the deals. So it's very tempting. And I can understand why people would be kind of fooled by it, or want to take it. I can understand the desire for why influencers and people would take it.
The other thing too I was thinking about as well is can you describe any of the social events?
Yeah, the biggest social event I went to by far was the Crypto Bahamas conference, and that was like a scale that I've never seen before for any kind of event. And I've been to a lot of events, right?
Hmm.
Everything was first class. We have A list of their A list, right? We have Bill Clinton, Tony Blair, the president of the Bahamas, Kevin O'Leary for
Yeah.
$15 million, as you know, right? And a lot of others. Like I can't remember. Kathy Wood is there, but I mean, I was a bit of an outsider. I just joined the company, right? And
Hmm.
and I personally was taken aback a little bit by the whole thing, right? Because like Kathy Wood is wrong on so many things, right? Kevin O'Leary seems like a kind of a scammy guy. I don't want to say I don't know enough about him. I don't want to make a personal attack on him,
Yeah.
but he's been involved in things that are
Yep.
questionable. He's completely flip flopped his crypto position. Then we had like Andrew Yang was there. I'm not so confident about the Forward Party. Anthony Scaramucci was there. He was Trump's former
Yep.
like press secretary. So like these are not necessarily like the savvy investors.
Yep.
They are in certain ways. I'm not going to say that they're not successful, but we're clearly hitching our wagon to
Warren
let's
Buffett's
say,
not on board.
yeah, you don't see like, traditional value
Yep.
investors, but then
Yep.
you have groups like BlackRock or something were there, and Sequoia Capital. So there was,
Mhm.
I mean, there's a lot of successful people, but they're the eccentrics of success, I guess. But Sam was also cultivating this image like this as well.
Well, that brings up an interesting point because a lot of times people like to make the argument that Sequoia or BlackRock are in this thing, but were they sending their best people and their big people from your? Could you tell? Did it
So
feel like, oh, they're only sending their young junior execs, or did it feel like they're bringing, no, they're bringing like, their VPs and
they
presidents?
probably, I guess I wouldn't be too knowledgeable about this because this was done on the financial side, so these
Hmm.
would be handled by the clients. But people did, like, people, there were major players at these events because they had this belief that FTX was going to become the next, was going to, what was the next thing? We're going to buy Goldman Sachs. Like FTX was going to
Yeah,
become this
the crypto JP
single.
Morgan as they were talking.
Yeah, yeah. Like it was this idea that Sam put out to the company was like, we're going to be a single app. As you heard, probably the banana, we can buy a banana with it, but that wasn't essentially the idea. The idea would be this was going to be a full banking replacement. So things like stocks, as you know, in the FTX US, we did stocks, things like crypto. Then it was going to go into, we had FTX Pay. So it was payments. It was,
Hmm.
and it was going to be like, it was going to replace PayPal, it was going to replace your bank and give you like, better interest on your money, right? As you can see, that didn't work out. But the intention was to have this
Hmm.
incredible brand, incredible, probably what they saw was visionary leader. Everyone wants to hitch to the next, Steve Jobs or
Yeah,
whatever, right?
yeah, yeah.
Visionary leader builds this amazing app. Young people are loving it. It's
Hmm.
super popular in the media. So that was sort of the intention, was to build this incredible app. And I think like the idea of that is not necessarily nefarious, right? It's, if
Right,
it's a
right.
great app and it's a great product, people like it.
Hmm.
You just can't take customer deposits to fuel that, right? That's where the problem lies.
Now, how do people feel today? You can talk about yourself or talk about just what you've heard through I think through the grapevine. Are they embarrassed they were a part of FTX? Are people like trying to essentially cover it now? Or I mean, just tell me, how do people feel about the association with it now, if they worked with the
Yeah,
company?
I think a lot of people have, like, most people I think have a mixture of memories, right? Like you have good memories because it was a young dynamic staff that was really trying to build a good product. So I'd say I never got to meet the inside people well, So I
Hmm.
was only with the guys on the semi outside, and people there were genuine. They were passionate. They worked 12, 14 hours a day, right? Like they were thinking they were building this amazing product. So I think people have a feeling like, man, we really were trying to do this
Hmm.
legitimately.
Hmm. Hmm.
But then they feel like, I personally feel a big shame. Like I was at marketing events getting people to sign up to this. I don't know how much money they put deposited in. Obviously, it's gone if they did, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
myself, and one of the things that FTX did, which I think is one of the worst things possible, was even towards the end, like a month before the collapse and leading up to that beforehand, they were asking employees like, give us $250,000 and we'll match you in equity an extra
Oh, they were
$250,000.
asking employees for
So
money?
yeah, they were asking because
Oh,
people, as I say, FTX built this very strong employee loyalty.
yeah,
Like everyone wore FTX branded clothing. As I
yeah,
said, you think you're maybe on the core, you're on the precipice of building the biggest financial company in history. It's
right,
sort of
right,
what
right.
Sam was telling us all the time. Like, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. So if you have a chance to get double equity and you're like, wow, this can be my
Yeah,
big
yeah,
chance to
yeah,
actually
yeah,
own
yeah,
something, and I'm so
yeah.
passionate about it. So yeah, they were asking for money from employees. They also deferred a lot of people. Instead of getting salary, you'll get like equity in the company.
Mm,
So they built a
mm,
lot of that.
mhm.
Myself, I was supposed to, when I got fired about 2 months before for asking minor questions around the edges,
Oh,
they,
okay.
they
So,
then
what kind of questions would you ask, and they just fired you? Like, just
well,
like, hey,
the,
do we have enough
the
money, or
reason
what?
the reason I was fired was, basically we had a phone call with a group of 5 or 6 executives, and the lady leading the call was the number 2 in the company's girlfriend. You can find out if you want who that is. But
Hmm.
essentially, the pretext was, we need to get out of all the deals that are non-core. Like we'll keep one or
Okay.
two. We'll keep Tom Brady. We'll keep Golden State Warriors. We'll keep Miami Heat. We'll keep MLB. But like YouTubers, anything non-core that would probably not have a massive ripple, let's get out of them. And the big ones were the gaming. It was like, I don't want to name the companies, but two of our
Yeah, I
larger
understand.
gaming partnerships.
Hmm.
But basically, the idea was, let's get out of all the deals. Now we're on the call with also an agency who supports us, and they're like, there's no precedent for in the first year getting out of a 10-year deal. Like you can't really do that, right? That doesn't, or if you do, you'll have to pay an exorbitant amount of money, because they're going to say they honored the contract, you signed it with them, you pay or you get sued, right? And so my solution was saying, listen, I've talked to them, I talked to all these guys off the record, our partners, and said, can we rework some of the entitlements to make it a little better? Can we change some things in the contract? And the guys have basically said, yeah, you know what, we're a 10-year deal, your guys' needs might have shifted, it's a bear market, I get it, we'll work with you. So I took this to the kind of the head of partnerships and said, listen, let me try to rework this for you, let me do this. And she goes, you're not getting the point, we want out of the deal. And I was like, yeah, but you can't do that, right? And the person who's telling me this is completely unexperienced in the field, like has no knowledge of how partnerships work. So I'm like, this isn't a thing. Getting out of the deal, that just doesn't exist. Like basically, we're going to start court battles with everyone if that's what you want to do. So I said, let me rework it. Let me try to make it better. And I tried 2 or 3 times on this kind of approach, and then I was denied every time. And then eventually I was just called and they said, yeah, it's just not a company fit. So thank you. But they didn't actually explain any reason why I was fired. Just said, yeah, thanks. You know.
What's interesting, tying this to like the YouTubers, because I don't like these guys, but it actually is very interesting, because we said before that Sam, for whatever reason, like saw my video, but he would ignore other side of things, because essentially from the outside looking in, I just felt like the numbers don't add up. And this is from my, because I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid essentially, because the numbers didn't add up. My wife and I all summer, like we're basically literally, and you can find all the videos, she's basically saying, where is she getting all this money to pay all of these people? It doesn't add up. And then the thing that's quite interesting is, so from the YouTube perspective, we knew that there was a couple of YouTubers that had made videos that said FTX has canceled our deal, and that the agency told us that we weren't, getting enough conversions or whatever, right? And the interesting thing is too, both of those said YouTubers, it was the Jeremy dude and the Tom Nash dude, they deleted said videos. I was very lucky to get copies of those videos before anyone else. So I was literally the only one who had copies of these things, and everyone was requesting my copies. And then after that, was interesting is the other YouTubers still kept pushing this stuff. They didn't think anything was wrong, which I thought was, this is where I thought all the red flags were strange to me. And I'll get to my question in a second, but I'm just kind of context. Like, so from my point of view, I saw Voyager go down, I saw Celsius go down, Coinbase guy was saying, hey, we're not going bankrupt. And then I learned that like BlockFi and these places that you don't own your own crypto, right? Because I'm new to crypto too. I'm not like an expert of crypto of 10 years or anything, not at all. And then, so to me, it was just obvious. And so I think the interesting thing is like, they're telling you just to get out of these contracts, right? So like at this point, are people like, oh crap, it is totally over? Like how do you keep the facade going when or does not, or does the other departments not know we're starting to cancel our big contract? The other people don't know about this?
They started to know. I know the Jeremy Financial and the Tom Nash. I think the idea was they wanted to do it in a way that minimized market impact, right? So Sam's probably pretext, and he did discuss this, so it is his words, was saying, in a bear market, all marketing is bad. So that was his idea, because he's saying like, it's insulting maybe because people are losing money. We shouldn't be promoting right now. We want to be as quiet as we can, but still like keep a presence, but not like, no more of the Matt Damon, be bold crap, right? No more. What was our tagline like before? Like crypto, you in, and like don't miss out, and all this kind of FOMO talk. So we were told like, let's go away from all of that marketing, which I agree with. I think that's a bad idea in the first place. I think it's negligent to do that stuff, but so yeah, he wanted to go away from that. And
how did Sam keep the facade up? So first you're saying he's like, well, the market is bad and we just need to, not advertise because it doesn't look good on us. But it's not necessarily an indication that our money situation is bad, it sounds like.
Correct. I think the idea was he believed like maybe what we had kind of thought internally was he had all these acquisition talks at the same time. So we were canceling things, but we were also acquiring new assets. So the idea was, maybe in his mind, he's like, if I dump my marketing spend, I can, because he will always do these 10x and 20x, and that's how he thinks in his mind. He's all about numbers. So he's like, so we were like, if he sheds 100K, he's going to make $1 million on some acquisition deal.
Right.
And to your point, like financially, we saw the numbers of FTX. Like they produced like $1 billion in revenue through trading fees. Like it was a pretty successful company. And
Mhm.
the big mystery that I have, and I don't know if you want to keep this on the record or off the record, but is like people at Alameda were also kind of saying that our balances were pretty good. Like we were not losing money. That whole $9 billion losses are not really real. What they were doing was they made investments in venture capital, so they're not
Mhm.
really liquid. But even with the analysis of our numbers, I still am like there's like 7-8 billion just like fully missing that Alameda insiders cannot really know where the money is, and they're confused because they were like, yeah, we invested several billion in these venture capitals. That's illiquid, but we should be able to claw some of it back. But then there's like a chunk of like 8 billion that's like straight up missing. And even the highest insiders I've talked to, not the ultimate insiders, not the guys
Right,
that are
right.
potentially going to jail kind of stuff, but these guys like they genuinely cannot account for it because on their books they thought everything was good. So either it's just bad accounting or there's something very nefarious that no one has yet discovered, and hopefully we discover it during the criminal proceedings. As you're seeing, there's tons of loose ends. There's political donations. There's
Yep,
his
yep,
parents' involvement, and I don't want to speculate on it because I don't know the answer.
yeah, yeah.
But these are potentials, right? That can make the story really big because there's definitely billions of missing money that like no one can really account for.
It's
What?
okay. Was there any kind of orientation when people are hired where you get to meet like lots of other people in the company and you have like a
Yeah,
better sense of what everyone does? Because when you get hired anywhere in any company, they introduce you to
yeah.
a bunch of people, and then those people sit down with you and say, "This is what I do. This is what I do." Like, was there anything like that so that you would have a general sense of?
No, I wish I could say yes, but it was one of the poorest initiations I can imagine. I mean, my last job, they flew us to a place, they gave us training on the product and
Yeah,
solution. We
yeah.
met everyone relevant. My boss did a great job of introducing me, like, here's your engineer that you'll work with, here's the
Yeah.
marketing people you work with. I was doing sales at the time, like, here's business development. They wanted us to be unified, right? FTX was very much sink or swim kind of like I didn't know anyone, and everyone was very unreachable in the company in a certain way. It was this company of busyness where it's like we did a lot of meetings and things, but there was very little deep think. There was very little like interpersonal relationships. I got to meet a lot of the people, as I say, but it was really through your own efforts. Like you had to go on Slack and like see who was there. So
Mhm.
there was no onboarding process. The only onboarding process we had is we had a group. We had to do a lot of privacy things. We had to change all our passwords, basic stuff, and then we
Mhm.
had like this thing called Sam's Thoughts, which were these pages of his beliefs on issues. Like I think market, blah blah blah, or I believe this. So it was like kind of
Like
cultish in
trees
my
and
opinion.
that kind of stuff, or like world issue kind of thing, or do you mean more like company?
Like he would describe like being at a party with CZ and talking with him and the things he had learned, and it was very bizarre, is what I mean. Like he would have these like thoughts, and like from this observation, I found that productivity is
Hmm.
4x if you do this and
Yeah, yeah.
this. So it was like 8 pages, like on his, or maybe more than 8 pages, because he kept adding to them, like his observations on how things worked in the world. And I
Hmm.
found that to be, yeah, some of them were so cringe to read, and because you're like, this is like the ramblings of a 27-year-old kind of like
Yeah,
nerd, right? So you're like, okay,
yeah,
but yeah, it was. So that was our orientation. Then we had a couple other things that you would do, but to your earlier question about like morale and stuff like that, it was, we kind of, you didn't really know what to do for work, and your managers were either getting fired all the time,
oh, they were.
rearranged
So there
all.
was high
Yeah.
turnover.
Oh, very high turnover. Yeah,
Oh, okay,
like
okay.
it was very, as I say, it was very centrally run company to the point of absurdity. Like
Mhm.
the amount of things you'd have to get Sam to approve and then wait like 2 weeks on when you need an answer quickly
Ah,
would be
okay.
all the time. So you have bottlenecks at the top, and if
Yeah.
you kind of if you had any run in with the people near the top and you did any kind of thing, like yeah, you could just be fired. Um,
Okay.
and that happened a lot. Yeah, so like people would come and go at pretty high rates. And that obviously is not great for morale too, because you're watching, oh, my boss got fired, or this guy got fired, and then you're just waiting for the day. Like I kept waiting for the phone call for months essentially, even though I'm trying to do, like, I was objectively, according to all the partners that I had, like they were like, oh, we finally have stability, we're finally doing good work.
Right, right.
Like I'll give you an example. We had like a partnership, and we basically, it was $130 million deal with this company. It's a lot of money. It was a
Hmm.
10-year deal. So you're talking,
Hmm.
this is big money. And
Hmm.
like we have basically two main activation spots in the year where we're gonna have big events for this entity. And the first one we just didn't do it, and I was like, we just left it empty. And I said, why didn't we do it? They're like, oh, we were too busy. And I was like, guys, this is millions of, this is our big
Right, right,
opportunity
right.
to showcase our brand, and we're too busy. And they were like, yeah, we just didn't think it was important enough. And me and the other guys, we just lose our minds when we hear that. So then when I came in, I was like, we're gonna make sure we do something in the next place. But as I mentioned to you, no one seemed to really care about it because
Right.
they were dealing with other things. So you do this work kind of thinking you're doing a great job. No one's appreciating it. No one seems to care. I would show
Mm.
like, hey, I did this event with a chess company, and I'm like, I got 15,000 new signups through this cool promotion we did with an NFT key and all this different things that
Hmm.
unlocked this Discord channel. Blah, blah, blah. It was a big, elaborate thing, took a lot of people. And they were just like, okay, cool, like, nice. So they didn't seem like they cared. And I was like,
That's
this
really
should be
weird.
our business to grow the
Yeah, yeah,
brand.
yeah,
Like, why
yeah,
are we
yeah.
doing more of this?
Really
You
weird.
know?
So guys, that was part 1 of 2. I think you're going to enjoy the next part. I'll put it up as soon as I can finish editing. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you for part 2 of our interview.